Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 10 years now, we've been asking the Franchpreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with John Ramsay, the vice president of Franchise Development Services for Marco's Pizza. And since 2008, Marco's Pizza has continued to open an average of 2 to 3 new locations every week, exploding from 200 to over 800 locations in just 6 years. And we're going to talk to John about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
The Stone Coat Franchise Opportunity. Are you looking for a unique and lucrative franchise opportunity? If so, take a look at Stone Coat. With a patented process which creates a true stone finish on almost any wall or ceiling, Stone Coat is a true game-changing product in the multi-billion-dollar construction industry. Stone Coat is applied faster, cleaner, and cheaper than conventional quarried stone, which saves both time and money. With advantages in remodel and new construction of both residential and commercial projects, Stone Coat is a true crossover product. The Stone Coat franchise opportunity provides a low startup cost, low operating expenses, comprehensive training, ongoing support, and no royalty payments. For more information on the Stone Coat franchise opportunity, go to www.stonecoatfranchise.com. That's www.stonecoatfranchise.com, or call us at 972-380-2700. That's 972-380-2700.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032. That's
franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 10 years now, we've been asking the Franchipreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with John Ramsay, the vice president of Franchise Development Services for Marco's Pizza. And since 2008, Marco's Pizza has continued to open an average of 2 to 3 new locations every week, exploding from 200 to over 800 locations in just 6 years. Hi, John. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Marty. Great to talk to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, John. It's great to have you. You know, I don't know if you know this, John. We had Marco's Pizza on the show. I want to say it was almost like a decade ago. And, you know, Back then, I mean, Marco's was, I don't want to say a smaller franchise, but, you know, I think it was like maybe 100, 150 units. And then when I was looking at the current numbers, it's quite impressive. And I'm not surprised, by the way, you know, but I mean, those are pretty impressive numbers, 2 to 3 new locations every week.
Yeah, very impressive. And it's interesting. About 8 years ago, it's the first time I came across Marco's, and Brian Stevens had just joined the team. We had worked together at Yum Brands, and I saw what he was doing, and I also sort of looked at it and said, wow, this could be interesting. And we talked a little bit, and I sort of followed his career and followed the path of Marco's over the years. And it's really a credit to Brian and the rest of the team of doing it the right way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I always thought, you know, Marco's Pizza had an interesting story too, John. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the history of Marco's Pizza, you know, and again, how long the company's been franchising. Sure.
So I sort of look at Marco's as being sort of a 2-chapter book. And then the first chapter, the company was founded in 1978 in Toledo, Ohio.
Yeah.
The founder, Pat Giamarco, was actually an Italian immigrant, so came over from Italy, looked at the landscape. And if you think it's just north of Toledo is Detroit, you know, home of Domino's, home of Little Caesars.
Right.
You know, they were really growing at the time, and he saw an opportunity to introduce a high-quality pizza delivery concept, you know, bringing an authentic Italian pizza recipe with fresh dough and fresh cheese, the family sauce recipe. And that's what he did. He started it in Toledo, very quickly grew. Through word of mouth, through local store marketing, through a great product, quite frankly.
Right.
And he started franchising right after that. And, of course, like a lot of chains, the original franchisees were friends. They were employees. They were acquaintances. You know, they were people that lived in the marketplace that said, wow, this is a great concept. You know, I'd love to take it to, you know, this town. I'd love to take it to this town. I want to be part of this. So that was really chapter 1 was Pat. And then, you know, sort of the start of chapter 2 was in 2004. Jack Budarak, who was a well-known restaurant executive, had worked with multiple chains. He got introduced to the brand. And again, he sort of saw at that time less than 100 locations. Really wasn't franchising aggressively. But he saw the passion in Pat. He saw the quality of the product. And he said, you know, this is something that could really has an opportunity. There's a place in the marketplace for high-quality pizza delivery concepts. And then Brian Stevens, as I mentioned, joined the team shortly thereafter, along with quite a few other folks. And they really started to look at the brand and said, okay, if we're going to do this, we want to do this the right way. We're going to bring with us our years of collective experience in franchising and really introduce a brand to the franchise market that satisfies the franchisee's needs as well as a consumer niche.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch the success, John. You know, it's always great for me. You know, the thrill is, you know, when I have a franchise on the show, you know, like 7 years ago or 10 years ago, you know, and you get to see that franchise grow. It really is a lot of fun to watch. How do you distinguish Marco's Pizza? You know, because of course, you know, there are other pizza franchises out there. You know, and if you're at a franchise show and someone comes up to your booth, where do you go from there? If someone asks you, so what do you guys do? I mean, how do you typically respond?
Yeah, so it's you know, I mean, first we sort of lay out the opportunity. You know, we're excited to grow. We're looking for entrepreneurs, and then we start to describe our concept. We're a very simple, streamlined business model. We have these systems in place: the training, the support, the guidance from day one. So that's in place. Secondly, is we're a family business. You know, Pat started as a family business. A lot of those original franchisees came in as a family business, so we're looking to continue that. So we talk about it in those terms as well as joining a family. From an investment standpoint, sort of a in that $225,000 to $440,000 range of investment. So we're at the what I would call sort of the lower end scale. We're not a very costly brand to get into. We're pre-approved through the SBA, so acquiring a business loan is through the SBA is quite common. So that's where we start to differentiate. But then when it really comes down to, okay, now what is it that makes Marco's difference?
Right.
We say and we live culture.
Yes.
Culture for us defines the people, it defines the brand, and it defines the company. People come first. So one of our core cultural beliefs is hospitality first. And we share this with prospective franchisees. You must be focused on our customer to be a franchisee. It's that simple. You're either, aligned with that philosophy or you don't. Second, we have a great product. So preparing fresh ingredients according to the recipes and delivering a great product every day is essential. You cannot skip that step. And third is our support, as a franchise organization. And we define our support as being based on teamwork as well as personal accountability. So when we talk about our culture and we share with our franchisees two of our cultural beliefs, number one is unity wins. We're in this together. And number two, accountability equals results. So each of us are accountable for a role to play.
It was saying something interesting, and that's what I got, in studying, Marco's Pizza and the business model is, very impressed with the culture, John. One of the things that really stood out for me, is that, Marco's Pizza makes a point to salute, all your employees really at every level, don't you? And I think that's really important, isn't it? Not all companies do that today, interesting enough. And that does make a difference, doesn't it?
It makes a huge difference. And, not only employees, but, imagine having franchisees that get introduced to the same thinking, the same way of being, and then having them trickle that down to their employees. So, when I'm out in the field and I'm visiting a restaurant, visiting a franchisee, visiting their crew, it's such a pleasure to talk to somebody who's there on the front line. They understand exactly what I think. They understand what's important to us is the same thing that's important to them. And that's a huge benefit for the brand and for our customers.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Technology has really changed from the last time I've talked to Marco's Pizza. John, maybe you could talk a little bit about, how technology plays a role in the business today compared to 10 years ago.
Sure. Well, we could talk about this all morning, as you might suspect. But a couple of things I'd point out. I would say, first of all, it's about continuous innovation. You can never stop learning. You can never stop adopting and growing. So, for example, one of the tools that we just built, and we partnered with the American Restaurant Association, and we created a food cost forecasting tool. And what the food cost forecasting tool is, first of all, it's a mobile-based app that allows our franchisees to look at our products, look at our menu mix, and look at commodity pricing and be able to link the two together so that they can forecast and predict going forward how is our food cost going to look like 6 months from now based on commodity pricing, so that they're then able to maximize their profits throughout the year. So, for example, if we know that pepperoni prices are going to spike in the month of October, guess what? We're going to run a sausage promotion in October.
That's so clever.
Right?
Yeah.
So that is just sort of one example of one of the innovative tools we're doing. Another one that I would really point out is our internal internet system. This was something that was built early on and continues to expand and continues to be a huge part of who we are and what we're able to offer. We have a very robust internet system. Everybody uses it, corporate staff, the franchisees. Brings a full library of tools and documents and resources directly to the franchise community. It also has an instant feedback opportunity, so they could contact us on an instantaneous basis. So whether it's a food safety issue or just a simple question about where do I find something, they could do that. So having that real-time value-added support through technology, I think is really critical. Just the way we operate today with smartphones, you have to have that.
Of course. That's fantastic. And, the pizza industry is always, it seems like it's forever changing too, John. I mean, I saw a number, and I think it was on your website. I mean, it's like, what is it, like 91% of the population or U.S. population, eats pizza. But, pizza has changed as well. How has Marco's Pizza evolved with, the ever-growing pizza industry?
Sure. Well, it's funny because the first thing we always say, and it's really important for us to remember this, is that as the industry evolves, we have not changed our recipe. We have not cut corners with our product. So that's a really critical piece to keep in mind that, everything else is changing around us, but we're not going to go to a frozen cheese, or we're not going to go to a packaged sauce. So the product must remain the same. So then it becomes, now how does your innovation work? If you're then looking at continuous improvement, so we look at things, for example, as the ordering and delivery process. Think about today versus 10 years ago. Today, every customer has a smartphone. Every driver has a smartphone. Every employee has a smartphone. So if we could link those together and improve the ordering and delivery process, that's a win. The other thing is our ability to interact with our customers wherever they are at any time. So it's not about them sitting in front of the TV and getting the message. It's about them interacting with us through Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and having that instant messaging and that be able to, again, give us feedback, hear from them, improve the ordering process. So those are the things that we look at as our evolution.
That's terrific. The majority of our listeners, John, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. Most of them have it in their mind, that they want to go into franchising. What characteristics does Marco's look for today in their franchisees?
Yeah, great question. And in fact, I'm actually jumping on a plane here in a few hours and flying to Toledo. We have Discovery Day this week.
Oh, great.
And I could promise you that's the very first question that we get. And that's the very first thing we address when we kick off our Discovery Day this week. So here's what we look for, and here's how we describe it to our prospective franchisees. First, you must be involved in and connected to your local community. This is not an absentee ownership situation. So the more you're connected to your local community, the more successful you're going to be. Secondly, and I sort of alluded to this before, is you must have a hospitality-first attitude. This is a customer business, a customer service business. And yes, you as a franchisee may not be the person on that front line every day, but boy, you better be sure that your team is focused that way.
True.
And that's the attitude that they, as a franchisee, need to have, is hospitality first, because if they're not sending that message on a daily basis, they're not going to be successful. And so, then you take that and say, okay, well, if I aspire to be a multi-unit franchisee, or, I didn't come out of a hospitality service business, so is this the right thing for me? So this is where we then say, well, it's really critical. You must hire, train, retain the best team to run your restaurant so that you can work on your business, not in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. What were the backgrounds of some of your franchisees? I mean, again, today, being up to over 800 locations, John, what were some of your franchisees doing before becoming involved with Marco's?
I would say the two most common profiles, number one is a restaurant background, either as a franchisee of another concept. We get quite a few folks who have worked their way up to a district manager or an area manager. We have Marco's employees all the time becoming franchisees, which is really exciting for us. So I would say that's the number one profile, is having some connection to the business. The number two is what I would describe as a serial entrepreneur, somebody who has that drive to own their own business. So whether it be a convenience store, a hotel, some other type of retail business, that type of thinking, that type of attitude, that's a very successful translation to owning a franchise.
Yeah, that's well said. It makes sense, John. Is that your employees? I mean, being on the inside, I mean, they really get to see, the ins and outs of running a Marco's Pizza, and they probably say, this is really exciting. It's I
right.
can do this. So it really does make sense, and I think it sends a strong message about Marco's Pizza. What is the training like? I mean, once you decide, or they decide, John, that they want to indeed become a franchisee. I mean, do they still come out to headquarters? Is that how it works?
They do. So it's so we have two parts, and sort of think of bookends. So you kick it off with 1 week at the corporate office at Marco's University. We have a dedicated training team. We have a dedicated training facility. So they'll spend that first week getting introduced to the executive team, getting introduced to the sort of support systems and sort of the fundamentals. And then they go back to their home market or go to a training market, and they'll spend 6 weeks in a restaurant. And it is so valuable to be able to spend that time in the restaurant, being able to interact with the crew, interact with the customers, really getting to understand how all the positions work within a restaurant. At the end of those 6 weeks, they'll then come back to Toledo for another week. And this is what we call our level 102. So now you're experienced, you've been there, you've seen the way things are. Now you think about your level of engagement with the executive team, your level of engagement with the senior trainers, to really be able to come back and now have a whole higher level of discussion about what you've seen, what you've learned, and then start to think about, okay, now how do I apply that to be an owner? Right? It's one thing to run a restaurant. It's another to own one. I've got to manage a business. I need to, how do I hire? What is the best practice to hire people and train people? What about P&L management? All of these things are really critical. So that's what they learn in weeks 1 or 2. So that's the fundamental training program. For most of our franchisees, though, it never stops, right? It's a continuous business meetings, local store marketing, co-op meetup groups. There's all kind of things that continue on and on. So it never stops.
It's pretty intense training too, John. I mean, again, doing the show such a long time, and I know you've been involved in franchising a long time. I mean, that's compared to a lot of other franchises that we've had on the show, that is very intense. And I love the second phase of it because you're right; they probably do come back with a bunch of different questions that they never would have asked in the first round of being a franchisee. And I think that's very clever, and it must be very effective, isn't it?
Well, it is, and you're right. I mean, I think having that a total of 8 weeks is some of you might say, well, wow, that seems like a lot of time. You know what? It really isn't that much time.
It goes by fast.
Well, not only it goes by fast, but I've seen this in my career, and all of us that have been in franchising, I've seen this in your career that often you go back and visit a franchisee after they've been in the business for 6 months, and you ask them, what have you learned in 6 months? You always get the same answers like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. 2 months in, 3 months in.
That's great.
I know so much more now than I knew then. And there's just something about living it, going through the cycles, going through the holidays, going through seasons, good times, bad times. These things are really critical to running a business, so you just can't discount that.
That's terrific. I know you get to visit a lot of franchisees, John. I mean, what's one of your favorites? I mean, when you go into a Marco's Pizza, I mean, do you have a favorite that you kind of like always steer towards, when you go into Marco's Pizza?
Oh my gosh, I'm such a creature of habit. I think like a lot of us are. Our cheesy white pizza, like unlike anything you've ever had. And,
is it really?
So not only is that my go-to pizza when I go, but it's like a guaranteed opening to get into anybody's door. So if I'm going to visit somebody or if we're having friends over, I'll stop at Marco's. I'll pick up a cheesy white. I'll bring that out, sort of introduce it to people, and they're hooked.
That's it. That's all it takes, right? Is the white pizza. That's terrific. Yeah. That's fantastic. What is a typical day like for our listeners, John? I mean, if you could paint a picture, you mentioned, of course, being very involved in the community and things like that. But I mean, if you could paint a picture of a typical day for a Marco's Pizza franchisee, what's that like?
If I alluded to before this idea of working on your business as opposed to working in your business.
Yes.
So our successful franchisees, they're working on their business. So what their day looks like it always centers around the employees. So it's employee engagement, connecting with their general manager, connecting with their crew members, really checking in with them, getting feedback from them. How's it going? How are you doing? Do you have what you need?
Right.
That employee engagement is such a critical part of the day and of the life that it always starts there and it always ends there. Then you'll see a combination of things going on within a given day. One day could be local store marketing. They could be out into handing out flyers, connecting with the school, engaging with civic clubs. Could be community involvement, just a pure volunteer, representing markets within their community, being part of the Chamber of Commerce, being part of the Rotary Club, but really being out and about in the public, being involved in the community, understanding what the community is up to and how they're interacting with it. Right. And then I would say the other thing that we see a lot, and of course this is near and dear to my heart, being on the development side, is identifying new growth opportunities. And growth opportunities is not just about if you're engaged with your employees and they see you out looking for new sites, you better believe they're going to be really motivated because they know that, hey, this company is growing, this franchisee is growing, I love working here, it's a great environment, they're going to be building more stores, it's an opportunity for me to move, maybe become an assistant manager. We have so many great stories. I was just down in Florida visiting one of our franchisees that just opened up outside of Tampa. Mm-hmm. He was a delivery driver for a franchisee.
Wow, that's amazing.
The franchisee loaned him his down payment to open up his first restaurant as a franchisee, and as you might expect, he's doing phenomenal. So
that's fantastic.
So that's a real growth opportunity, and that's a great day for a franchisee.
That's the American dream, isn't it, John? When you hear stories like that, it's so inspirational, isn't it? And that's really what, I love and I got from Marco's Pizza, so I think that's really terrific. Does Marco's Pizza offer any unique support elements or franchise incentives, John?
We do. And in fact, we have something that I think is unique within the industry, and quite, in all modesty, I'd call us the industry leader in veterans recruitment and veterans programs.
Yeah, those are great.
We brought on a 20-year military veteran who is a vice president of our company, so this is a serious position, very well-placed position, and he does several things that I think are unique. Number one is this is not just a discounted fee if you're a veteran, but it's really about offering a clear path for veterans to reenter the civilian workforce.
Right.
And that could take form in many different ways. It could be, enlisted personnel, who had not gone to college. They just get out. They're 22 years old, and they're looking for a path to grow in the civilian world. And we have an apprentice program where they could come in and learn what it's like to work within the Marcus system so that eventually they could then realize their dream. What they have focused on. It could also be for retiring officers.
Right.
Somebody's been in the military for 20 years or 25 years. They're leaving the service. They want to reenter the civilian workforce. They have a dream of owning their own business, and we'll help them get introduced to franchisees, spend time in restaurants, really put together a full program to integrate them into our system. So that, and by the way, this starts 6 months, a year out before they retire. So this is not just, again, it's not just a discounted program that somebody has, but it's a true overall program. And we started this a little over a year ago. We're now seeing folks get into the system. Well, you talk about being proud, and you talk about, going to visit a veteran who's now becoming a franchisee. It takes it to a whole other level of appreciation for us as a brand, as well as for appreciation for our veterans.
Oh, absolutely. It does make so much sense, John. If you think about it, when you retire from the military, you're still relatively young. Young is relative, of course, but 45, 50 years, there's still a lot of time left, to work, in society and give back, and I imagine that the veterans are pretty good at following rules and following systems, which is of course key to franchising, isn't it?
Well, they are, and I think the other thing about veterans that I really appreciate is, where else in our society can you find a group of people who are working with 18, 19, 20-year-olds and having them do extraordinary things than in the military. So to take somebody with that skill set, who's working with these young folks today, a lot of people talk about, well, the millennial generation is difficult to manage. Well, not for these folks. For them, they're normal. They're used to this. And look at who works in our restaurants today. It's that same age group. So to bring that skill set it's a huge benefit.
I think that's well said. You've been in franchising quite a long time, John. And I was mentioning earlier, that our listeners are aspiring franchipreneurs. From everything that you've learned up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? Because as you know, there's just so much out there today, and we find that, a lot of them in the beginning stage are really overwhelmed because there's so much out there.
Right.
So what advice would you give to them?
So I always share this with prospective franchisees, and I get the question a lot. And for me, it's really about, first of all, you have to start with due diligence. You've got to study the industry. You have to ask a lot of questions. But don't stop until you get your answers. Get to know us, get to know other brands. An informed franchisee is a successful franchisee. I really, and this is one of the fun things about our Discovery Day coming up this week, for example, is, take the time to go to Discovery Days. Take the time, come prepared with questions to ask. Really be honest with yourself about what is it that I want from my career? What is it that I want from this investment? And ask the franchisor, what does that look like for me within your organization? Can I get that? Is that achievable?
You're right.
Then I would say the other thing that we talk about a lot is more on a personal level. Identify your passion. Focus on your skills and your gifts. And find the right franchise that aligns with your values. Don't try to fit into somebody else's system. What's important to you? What do you have to bring? And share that with folks. And again, take the emotion out of the decision and say, are my skills and gifts aligned? Are my values aligned with this franchisor? And if so, we're going to be successful. If I try to kid myself and try to fit myself into something that doesn't fit, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, John. We're going to put that in our Great Quotes and Franchising podcast, as far as our advice to our listeners, because I think that is very important. And it's really important to ask those questions in the beginning. Sometimes I think aspiring entrepreneurs might be afraid to ask questions at the risk of them looking dumb or something like that. And I think you want to ask all those questions in the beginning, don't you? Because there are no dumb questions, are there?
Well, there's not. And so many of us, we're used to going on a job interview, right? Where but a franchise, becoming part of a franchise organization is not like getting the job. This is your life. This is your savings. This is what you have to bring. This is how you're going to interact with the organization. So you have to change your mindset a little bit and really be open to that.
That's terrific. What are Marco's Pizza's plans for the future, John? If you could look into a crystal ball, maybe 3 to 5 years down the road, growth has been, you're at 2 to 3 new franchises per week. Where do you see Marco's maybe 3 to 5 years down the road?
We talked about early on about sort of this trajectory that we've been on. And listen, we started slow. In 2004, we didn't start out building 100 restaurants a year. We built a solid base. So we've built a very successful growth program. And so, our goal is to continue that growth, is to grow smart, partner with only the best franchise candidates, develop markets effectively and intelligently. This is not a shotgun approach. We don't go anywhere with anybody. That's what's brought us to where we are today, and we see that as continuing. So, we continue to add support staff. We continue to spend our time. We identified 10 new markets this year that we had no restaurants in, that we specifically targeted. They're all contiguous to markets where we already have restaurants. So there's some familiarity with the brand. There's a support system already in place. So, we're going to continue to grow, 150, 200 restaurants per year over the next 3 to 5 years.
That's terrific. What's the best way, John, for our listeners to get more information on becoming a franchisee to Marco's Pizza? Is there any websites that you want to direct them to?
Sure. Well, you can't go wrong going to marcos.com. So marcos.com.
That's fantastic. It's easy enough. It's a great website, by the way. Yeah, it is a great website. There's a lot of information on there, for prospective franchisees, and I think you've done a great job. And it's just been fun to watch the success of Marco's. Again, I've been watching, your success for a decade now. So I'm not going to wait another decade to have you back on the show. I'd like to invite you back in another couple of years, and see where the organization's at. And it's been a privilege to have you back on the show, John.
We'd love that, Marty. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, this has been my pleasure, John. We'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Coming up on segment 2, you're going to hear what every franchipreneur needs to know before buying a franchise. We're going to play a clip from our popular Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand? The opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach.
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Today's Great Quote in Franchising is being brought to you by
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott, the president of Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting Franchise Interviews many years now, and during that time, we've had some incredible quotes on our show. Today, you're going to get to hear from Nick Friedman, who is the founder of College Hunks Hauling and Junk and Moving Franchise Opportunity. And Nick said something really quite brilliant on our show that we haven't heard in over a decade of doing franchise interviews. We started speaking about the 4 F's of franchising, and interesting enough, we ended up with 5 F's of franchising as we were doing the interview with Nick. And, you know, in marketing, we talk about the 4 P's of marketing, which is product, price, promotion, and place. So I thought this was really brilliant what Nick said. So here we go with Nick Friedman, the founder of College Hunks Hauling and Junk Moving Franchise Opportunity.
History.
What, you know, the majority of our listeners, we call them, Nick, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. What types of characteristics do you look for in your franchisees?
You know, what I like to say is there's 4 F's when considering a franchise, which is also, I guess, starts with a letter F. So, you know, there's 4 F's that come out of franchise. And I think this is what a prospective franchise should think of when they're considering what franchise they want to pursue. And this is, quite frankly, I think what franchisors should consider when they're evaluating a prospective franchisee. So the first F is fit. You know, do they fit? In other words, do they have transferable skills that can make them effective at this business? Have they done anything in their prior professional or personal lives that would make them be successful in this type of business? The second piece is the family side. In other words, does their family support them in them pursuing this endeavor, whether it's their husband or wife or kids or parents? You know, do they believe in them? Because you don't want things to get tough in their inner circle to say, I told you so. You want them to, you know, kind of cheer them on to get through it. The financial piece is important. In other words, are they capitalized to be able to invest in the opportunity, and do they have realistic financial expectations? And then the last F is the fun factor. You know, can we have fun working with this individual? You know, franchising is very much like a partnership, even though that's not typically called that. You got to have, you know, an alignment of vision and values to be able to enjoy working together. So that's really what we look for. You know, we want people that believe in the secret sauce that we've already developed. We don't want somebody to come tell us that they think it should be done differently. We want them to tell us that they believe in what we've created. And sure, we would, you know, want to continuously improve and encourage ideas, but not, you know, we want folks that believe in the system and are going to execute the system rather than trying to shortcut success by doing it, you know, doing it their own way. And I think that's, you know, really no different in our system than any other franchise model that is going to be successful long term. They need to really take into account those factors.
That's great, Nick. We have this great quotes in franchising podcast. Anytime we hear, you know, Michael Gerber's been in there a couple times, but we're going to put that one in there because I haven't heard that in over a decade, and I think that's great advice to our listeners. It's really fantastic because it's true. I mean, you could really, your business, you could teach to anybody, couldn't you? I mean, pretty much, you know. But you know, it's interesting in putting those factors in there, you know, like family support, you know, and even fun. I haven't heard that, you know, but it should be an enjoyable business, and you know, because it is a stressful situation for the customers, I guess you got to be able to put a smile on your customer's face, don't you?
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, as you know, there's over 3,000 franchise opportunities out there. So, you know, what's going to separate one from the other? It's got to be something that you can enjoy. And I guess I'll grab another F out of there. I'm on a roll here. Fulfillment. You know, is it something that, you know, we're going to be fulfilled doing day in and day out? Because I think franchising is a lot like a gym membership. You know, if you join the gym and you've got fitness goals, you're getting access to all types of equipment, personal trainers, coaches, workout groups, but you still got to go and show up and do the work. So if you buy a franchise, you're getting access to the business model in a box. You're getting access to trainers, coaches, fellow franchisees that you can, hold each other accountable with, but you still got to show up and put in the effort to execute that business model. So that's where I think those factors come into play.
Once you decide that, you do like them, and they like you, Nick, and there is a fit, what is the training like? I mean, do they typically come to Florida for training? How does that work? If you'd like to hear that whole interview with Nick Friedman of the College Hunks Hauling and Junk Moving franchise opportunity, all you have to do is go to franchiseinterviews.com, go to our franchise interviews by category page, and then go to our home repair and improvements page, and you'll be able to listen to that whole show with Nick Friedman. It was really a fantastic interview. It was great to finally have Nick on the show. And lastly, we'd just like to thank everyone for making this podcast such a big hit. It's hard to imagine. We've been doing it now over 10 years, and it's just amazing to see where the podcast has gone. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, sponsored by Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.